More on the iPhone customer repair experience, the iPhone's 15th anniversary, and Apple regains the top spot in brand recognition. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by Zocdoc. Find local doctors who take your insurance. Learn more at Zocdoc.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. We pick up this MacVoices live conversation right where we left it last time, in the middle of a conversation about the iPhone customer repair experience and how Apple is handling it. Let's go back and let the panel do the talking.
Yeah, I definitely agree that, we've all talked about whether or not the actual blog posts themselves are worth their salt, and usually they're not. No offense to the writers out there, but to me, it's more of the idea of all of the self-service stuff that they've done. Everything that Apple does is a production. You go to an Apple store, they're like, we're going to teach you how to use we're going to teach you how to use photos on iPad. And you got somebody with a Tony Robbins setup with the headset mic and the whole thing, and they're walking up and down. Like, if they're willing to put that much time and energy into, hey, this is how you open the Photos app, here's how you hit edit, and here's how you rescale and add some filters, they could bring their technicians out and say, we're going to talk about what it looks like to actually repair your phone. We're going to talk about why we want to charge $1,200 as a rental and why it's so important to ensure that you're doing these things right, whether it be, keeping waterproof, seals, maintaining the warranty, whatever they're choosing to do. The thing is, they didn't. And when everyone, quote unquote, put them on blast in the press, they did the thing that they tend to do, which is just be quiet, which not a bad strategy, but that leaves space for people to write posts like this, to write outlandish posts or posts that don't necessarily solve a problem. They're just highlighting all of the big key people are going to be upset about issues. And that's where I just say, me being a person who had to learn the hard way, had to learn with the YouTube videos, had to get a heat gun, had to mess up an iPhone or two. It would have been great had I been able to say once a month, once a quarter even, be able to sit down at an iPhone store and say, we're going to take some busted iPhones that got returned that we can't do anything with, and we're going to show you why it's so important to do these things step by step and what it looks like to go through that process. Knowing that you can't scale that up into any meaningful business that's going to compete with Apple. So just do it, because the press on that looks 1,000 times better than I had to, spend $1,200 to rent some equipment, and ultimately they threatened me to charge me after 7 days, whether that's true or not.
Apple could do all of that, but I don't see that they get any benefit, because I read this article and I figure, okay, this guy's just this is a clown. This is a humor piece. This is, I dare say, is this another one of these disguised New York Times critical hit pieces on Apple, which they have been unfair to Apple in the past. So I don't know what the motivation is behind the writer. I'm not like some of the political pundits who can tell people's motivation by which party they are in. All I would say is, I thought it was an interesting piece, and I thought it was a reaction that Apple's been under so much pressure for so long about repairability, from iFixit and everybody else, that they offered something up. And this is, hey world, this is the unintended consequences of what you wanted. If you want it, you can get yourself into a position where it's way more complicated, takes way more time, plus way more money to fix something than just going to Apple or an Apple partner and get it fixed right the first time. It's sort of like,
there's so many people on YouTube that put together videos, to the mainstream iFixit, responded back saying, hey, this is the end of iFixit, right? You can get your iPhone battery replaced through iFixit probably cheaper than you can doing with this kit. You have many other bloggers have done videos that say this is a waste of time. It's a lot of work. And a lot of times people have said they've broken what they've tried to get out, because, trying to get the adhesive out from trying to move the screen. There's just so many variables yeah, they give that Apple's providing these machines, but it doesn't make any sense. It absolutely makes no sense to do this. And I understand the article is just trying, maybe a little bit of clickbait, trying to get people to read about this. But there's plenty others that did some good, even in the YouTube videos that just basically prove that Apple's doing it because of all the pressure about having repairs, but they're not providing repair kits. But now, at least now they're doing it, and you can't say that they didn't try. And the repair manuals are there, so you can go back and you can read them.
So Brad in the chat room says people are not used to what is involved to do the right job. These tools are the same as what the Apple people use. I can't speak to that but I'm going to assume that is correct, because it would not make a huge amount of sense to create tools to send out to folks.
Well, Apple says they are the ones
tools.
that.
Yeah. Okay.
use.
So yeah. So here we go. And usually I'm the one that's calling out the clickbait pieces, but I'm kind of glad that somebody did this because I think the message needs to be that if you're a geek and you want to play around with this, here's what it's going to cost you, and here's what may go wrong, but here's what to expect. But if you're not, this is not just going down and changing the fuse in your fuse box, if you even have fuse boxes anymore. It's like this is sorry. The metaphor was there, Jeff. I just didn't modernize it.
Hold on, Chuck. I'm getting a call from my rotary phone.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah.
It's sitting on top of the ice box.
Yeah.
My recollection of this from a month ago, because this is May 25th, and it did get a lot of pushback. And he was like, why is Apple sending me 200 pounds of stuff, as if Apple didn't tell him? I felt like he was really misrepresenting, as if Apple is claiming, you can save money by getting this kit. Apple doesn't say that. I don't think they say that at all. He set up a straw man and knocked it down. And, I think it's kind of too bad we're giving more time to this article.
Jim, I don't feel bad.
Actually, the discussion I had, I think David touched on it, which is Apple. As we all know, Apple never admits they have ever made a mistake, but they do respond. And I think we're seeing this, that they are responding. I voiced that, David has said he kind of agrees with it. What about you other four? Do you think that this is, Apple responding to years of, repairability, criticism?
Well, sure. They're worried about legislatures forcing their hand.
I love the pettiness of Apple here. Like it is very much we don't want to do. I mean, you could replace this with like John Deere, and like again, people have very valid reasons as to why things are expensive to make properly or to repair properly. I get that. However, anytime there's a law that's like, now you have to do this, but they don't define any of the parameters, and a company says, all right, we'll do it to the full extent of the law and not a step further. And honestly, it's fun to watch companies get petty like that at times. Does it come at a cost? Yes. Again,
I'm not.
Well, the law doesn't require anything
I'm not sure
yet,
I understand.
but I think
but there are policies. There are lobbyists. There are a lot
Apple
of
is
different.
worried that there will be a law, and they're trying to cut that off.
So, and they can even say, we have a repair program. Now there's no reason to make a law. No one's going to look into the program.
But even if they look into the program, that they can find out that this is not something that's easy to do.
Yeah, this is what we do. This is what we pay people good money to do.
Yeah.
So
right, it's on the Nimrods in Congress who think, oh, how difficult can it be to replace a battery? Well,
Well, but this New York Times article made it sound like this was a scam on Apple's part, and I don't think that's correct.
I think that was the. I don't know if that was Brian X. Chen or if that was the editor at the Times, adjusting the headline and other copy. Because as we know, it's many hands touch the final words that we actually read.
Well, whatever, but that's what the result was. It was presented as Apple's come out with this scam. And I, like what Jay was saying, this could be a great program for some somebody that has a bunch of things where they could do this once a month or once a quarter, and in their week they could fix 10 phones. That might well be, worth doing. Yeah, it's probably not a very good way to fix one phone, but
Well, whoever. Sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
I was pretty much done.
Well, okay. So whoever wrote the last paragraph, and Mark, I think you're right. We tend to blame writers, and sometimes it's the editors that deserve the blame. But the next to last paragraph says, but the entire experience was far from simple, and even for those who try, Apple exerts too much control by requiring approval of its repairs. If we install Apple parts like a working screen taken from another iPhone, they should work, period. Okay, that sounds really good, and that sounds very idealistic. And it also sounds really, really naive. Anyone that has worked in technology or played with technology at all, parts are not just necessarily interchangeable. And by the way, yes, Apple wants to have it certified so they don't have to deal with you calling up because you screwed up the repair and then want them to help you. So,
right. And the
no one
thing
would
I
ever
think
do that.
Jim's right. But Chuck, to your point, I think the thing they were really talking about was, and Apple's had this, many times over the past couple of years, is the secure enclave and authentication, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, just to make sure that it's not just some hacker who's changing things in trying to break into a phone. So, earlier on in the article, he describes a sequence of actions that he needs to go through. Yes, they're clumsy. You need to call Apple and, have a chat or iChat with, one of their techs. But I think it's defensively part of their whole privacy thing of they're not just going to let some guy, buy some parts and, steal the president's phone and, get access to, all the contact information of world leaders. And I'm, fictionalizing in order to illustrate a point.
Yeah, but Mark, I think you've hit on a key point here that I would like to educate people and have them remember that there are a lot of different facets to something like this. In up to this point in the discussion, we haven't even touched on the security issues or the privacy issues of giving someone access to your phone.
Or the liability issues when ultimately you try to sue that company for giving you the things that set your house on fire, even though you did it wrong.
Amen. Exactly. So, I'm glad you brought this up. I had not seen this. Somehow I missed it. It sounds like everybody else was familiar with it, but I'm glad you brought it up, Mark, because I think it deserves a little bit of attention and a little bit of discussion. And listen, if you're a geek and you want to crack your iPhone, by all means, go and rent this kit from Apple and have at it. But then don't blame Apple or any of us when we didn't say we told you so. If you want to poke around the guts of it, that's fine. But I'm not sure that the rest is realistic.
Yeah, I mean it's a high-tech electronic version of a plumbing project. And anyone's ever had to do plumbing, it's great. There's so many different standards for parts. And what seems like a simple job, turns into an entire Sunday afternoon. And, that's why professional plumbers are worth every bit that they charge you.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing I did want to bring up, I thought about it earlier as I was listening to you all talk. If I take my Honda in for service, I pretty much have to take it to a dealer now because they're going to plug in the computer system and take a look at it and let it diagnose itself. If I crack the hood open and start poking around, I'm not going to know what's going on in there. So if I want to repair my Honda, should I expect that they're going to send me or allow me to rent, a computer to plug it in so I can do the diagnostics and figure it out? I mean, that may not be.
There's third parties can get those computers.
I'm sure they can.
Third party places that can get it.
I'm sure there are third-party iPhone repair tools as well.
I'm not sure. Are there now? I thought the recent models, because of the Touch ID sensor and stuff, and that you couldn't do that what you used to do anymore.
I don't know about recently, but I know when Touch ID first came out, there were a lot of things about the fingerprint sensor being tied to the actual motherboard and it being a hardware thing. So, and I've had this one where people crack their fingerprint sensor, and it's just like you got to replace the phone at that point because otherwise you're doing more swap than it's worth.
Interesting. I'm going to give Brad the last word in the chat room. He says this is Apple's version of scared straight. Great point, Brad. Great point. Let's see the next item on the agenda. David brought this one, and somehow I missed this. That this is an anniversary of the iPhone, David.
It is 15 years ago, June of 2007. The first iPhone was introduced. Steve Jobs on the stage, and I thought this was
actually June's when it shipped, isn't it?
Yeah, when it shipped, because it was
June 20th.
So the stage show was in January.
January, right? But it didn't come out until June. You couldn't get your hands on one until June 29th. Was tomorrow as we record this.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by Zocdoc. Find doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. If you're a fan of it, sushi is incredible. But gas station sushi, not so much. Finding the right sushi makes all the difference. The same goes for finding the right doctor. With Zocdoc, you can find the right doctor for you, in your network, and in your neighborhood. One that makes you feel like you're in good hands, you're supported, and you're heard, even if you're telling them about your favorite sushi place. Zocdoc is a free app that shows you doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. Zocdoc's mobile app is as easy as ordering a ride to a restaurant or getting delivery to your house. Search, find, and book doctors with just a few taps. Every month, millions of people use Zocdoc. If I need a quality doctor, Zocdoc is where I go. Go to Zocdoc.com/MacVoices and download the Zocdoc app for free. Then start your search for a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's Zocdoc, ZocDoc.com/MacVoices. Zocdoc.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Zocdoc for supporting this week's MacVoices.
But it's just wow how long we've come with the iPhone here, and the article even mentions the fact that when you're selling an iPhone, the prices just seem to hold their value pretty well. I mean, you don't see that with an Android phone or any other smartphone for that matter. I think the resale value on an iPhone is probably far superior than any other phones that are out there. So, but now we think back. I mean, I pretty much owned every single iPhone. I mean, you can look at the little picture behind my wall here. I got a chart just to kind of remind myself of which iPhone I've owned. I've pretty much owned every single one of them on that chart. Maybe for the exception of the very first model I didn't buy because it just was a little pricey for me. I chose not to. But I started with the 3G and all the way up to the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So it's been quite a ride with the iPhone. I think it's obviously the most profitable of any device that Apple's had, and I think Apple will continue to evolve with it. And yeah, it's happy to celebrate 15 years.
This is a fun. Oh, go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
I bought the first one about 3 months after it came out, and I thought I was late to the party.
Yeah, we were, because it pretty much was obsolete after a year because it came out the next model. And
I used it for more than a year. I think it
lasted a long time. Maybe it had 3G service, I think it was.
Yeah, this is a fun article. If you aren't familiar with the history of iPhone, or if you're relatively new to it, because they've embedded the videos of Steve Jobs' introduction. They've embedded the video I see here of Steve Ballmer's reaction, which
mobile, we don't care about that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah, so this just a flat out fun article. But we talk a lot about how Apple devices have changed the world, but the iPhone really, I think, has to lead that pack. If for no other reason than just the sheer number of them that are out there, that the people that have adopted them and made them their own. I mean, the whole mobile mobile device thing was one category, but the iPhone itself, made that category. I mean, it was creeping up there a little bit with BlackBerry, but the iPhone took it to a whole new level.
Yeah. Oh, it did. It did. It's just an amazing device. I can never not have an iPhone until they stop making it. I'll continue to use my old one until it dies. But
Do you hold on to your old models, Dave, or do you?
No, I trade them in every year. I'm on the trade-in program, so I'm pretty much renting my iPhone every year.
I have all my old ones. I still have my original one.
Yeah. No, I've sold
the
and
boxes,
traded in every single model. Yeah, I don't have, other than I have a 10R and a 13 Pro Max.
But I don't get new ones every year. I think I only had a 1, 4, 6,
No,
and 8, which is what I
was
still
trading.
have.
Yeah, I talk about them every week. I have to have the latest one. So
Yeah. Well, you're about due, Jim. Then for the 14.
I will probably buy a 14 the day it comes out, which I've never done before. But
Well, to be fair, no one's bought a 14.
Yeah, Jim.
I mean,
that's not what you
I've never bought. I've never ordered a phone on the day it came out, but I probably will.
I have, and the experience is overblown, especially when you run into a problem.
Well, the NFC reader has failed on my phone, and I use that for my glucose meter. So that's kind of sucks. I really would like a new one, but I don't really want to buy a 13 now, and that one's so soon. So I think I will just buy it when it comes out and try to get it as soon as I can.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, what models are everybody running now? David?
well, you me, 13 Pro Max.
Yeah, 13 Pro Max. Jim, you said you're an 8.
Yeah, it's the big one, 8
right?
Plus or whatever.
8 Plus.
Yeah. Jeff?
I'm on a 12 Pro.
Okay, Trevor. Jay, are you on an iPhone?
12. What is this?
Well, you're Mr. Microsoft.
I feel attacked.
I just had to
Was
ask.
that passive aggressive? I'm not sure.
He's using a Zune.
I'll have you know,
There you go.
I attended the most recent Mac Power Users meetup, and I think people talked more about iOS devices than they did Mac devices the entire time. So I am using a 12 mini, and like Jim, I will probably buy a new device on day one, mostly because battery life is starting to take its toll. And I don't have $1,200 to loan to Apple for a week. So we'll see.
I saw Jay's iPhone. He definitely has one.
Oh, so you can confirm you're his backup?
You're his backup confirmation.
And he is also my alibi.
Slander.
Mark, how about you?
12 Pro Max, and I had that for a long time. Before that, I had an iPhone 7. So they're great. We got into COVID and other things, and the thing that kicked me over the goal line last year, even though it was in mid-cycle, was that vacation I alluded to, and that beautiful picture of the Stanley Hotel behind me was taken on that phone. So for me nowadays, it seems like it's more the capability of the camera and getting enough generations of improvement, than necessarily the processor speed or improvements in other aspects of the phone. Although better, bigger, better, brighter screens are certainly desired, but all the processor power, to me that's 18 billion, 20 billion transistors. Who cares? What's a couple billion transistors in the phone between friends?
I remember when I went from the 6 to the 8, I was pretty thrilled with how much faster it was.
That was a pretty significant jump for you. Yeah.
That was a jump.
So is David the only person that buys year to year? Because
No,
I know. You buy year to year too.
I do.
Okay, so
I'm on the upgrade program.
So it seems about split, because that was going to be the thing that I thought about was there's always a conversation, one, about reusability, being eco-friendly. Apple wants to be completely carbon neutral by 20 whatever, like most companies now. And I think about that now, especially given one of the news pieces recently about a device that was still for sale, 3 years ago, that won't be able to run Ventura. I say all this because it's interesting to see that at a Mac enthusiast collective like this, not everyone is saying, I will buy every device. I'm going to stand in line and get all the devices. So it seems like Apple is doing good to say our devices are good enough to run 3-4 years, but not everything is, or not all the different facets that they sell. I don't know. I just think about it in that way sometimes.
Jay, true confession. I used to be buying iPhones almost every year or every other year, based on an upgrade cycle. And then with the 7, that stopped because it just seemed that the improvements were so minimal until you got to like 3 generations really to see a significant enough improvement in the camera and other capabilities. And ditto for the Macs until they've come out with their own. It's been 8 years between my 2013 Intel-based MacBook Air and when I bought this M1-based MacBook Air. So will things pick up? Maybe now that they're better in control of their processor roadmap. But I think by and far, a lot of the improvement is pretty minimal because they've gotten so damn fast and efficient that you really don't get a lot by upgrading every year. It
seems like the 4K to 8K discussion. A lot of people are like, "Oh, when's 8K going to be readily available?" It's like, who cares? Like, 8K is not going to give you the more clarity. Like, your eyes can't.
Talking about 8K video?
Yeah, like 8K video on smaller screens. You have people that are just clamoring for this, and it's like you're not. It doesn't really matter.
Oh, I have a 3K monitor. When am I going to get an 8K computer for it?
In the chat room, a bunch of comments here. Brad says he has a 12 Pro Max. Brian says the 13 Mini. Webb has a 13 Pro Max. Eric says he weeps for the iPod. He's one of the few who still use one. Not sure that's true, Eric. I think a lot of people still use them. But Brad poses an interesting question, and I'm going to repeat it here. Which had the greater change to society, the world? Either the Mac in 1984 with the graphical user interface or the iPhone with the mobile world?
The iPhone.
I think the iPhone.
The iPhone, easily.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree. As much as I love the Mac, and there was a big shift there. The iPhone was amazing.
The iPhone was the first time where originally the price point was static. Everybody had the same phone. Everybody had the same device. And by doing that, I think it sent a message that everyone should have the ability to have access to computing devices, be it a computer, be it a phone, be it, a Raspberry Pi or whatever. But saying that, NBA superstar buys the same iPhone that, the president buys, which is the same iPhone that, somebody buys for their high school kid who's, going off to camp or whatever. Like, everybody deserves quality computing experiences.
Amen. Hey, Andrew Orr is here. Andrew, welcome. It's good to have you.
Hey, I know I'm late, but I'm also still glad to be here.
I'm delighted to have you. We're about to get into the last story of the evening, but I think it's a fun one, and I will be anxious to hear what you have to say about it. And I'm throwing it into the chat room right now, into both chat rooms. But this was the 9 to 5 Mac story about Kantar Brandz evaluation that shows Apple has retained or regained the most valuable brand designation in the world. And I thought this was interesting. I mean, part of it bothers me a little bit that there's no serious quantification here in this article, or for that matter on the Kantar site. And I'm going to throw that in the chat rooms as well. But given the fact that somehow Apple, and when you look at Apple brands and the other top brands, I think kind of hard pressed to argue that they are definitely top brands. And so this is one of those things that I think speaks so much to our discussions it seems like we covered every other week about stock prices and the analysts, jumping things up and down constantly. This has to be one of Apple's biggest assets is their brand recognition and perception of quality. Anybody disagree with that?
Apple has spent literally decades cultivating that very thing. Of course, this is important for them. This is a key part of who they are. When you buy an iPhone, you're buying Apple. When you buy a new Mac, you're buying Apple. What kind of watch do you wear on your wrist? An Apple Watch. It's all about the brand in that sense. Now, with this study, it's been a while since I've had to look at some of these because I'm not writing the news anymore. I can't remember if Kantar is doing this based on user surveys or customer surveys, or if they're doing this based on industry participant surveys, like Fortune does.
I can answer that. Kantar has been having this for a long time, and I'm sure next couple of days we'll hear Ken Ray talk about it because they have an absolutely proprietary methodology. So I don't know if it's monkeys at typewriters or apes and chimpanzee throwing darts at dartboards, but they're doing this clearly as a promotional piece because everybody, as you know, based on discussion of the repair article and other articles on this show, everybody's interested in Apple. So it's a free way to get attention. Just sort of like people leverage off of get returns like Warren Buffett. You want to be rich, you mention Warren Buffett's name. So, just you mention Apple and branding, and right away, people are going to start to pay attention to you. So, Kantar is in the brand consulting business,
right?
And you dig into what they do. So everyone, if you see the link and you can get it for download, be wary. You'll have to register. But you can't download it. If you try to print it as a PDF, you can't print it as a PDF. They've effed up all the JavaScript. You can save it, so it will save it as a web page, which basically saves about 204 teeny tiny little JPEG images, which is what the presentation is if you view it in the browser, which is absolutely horrible to look at because everything is too small. So, as a user experience, I think the headline is, it is the sex and the sizzle. Reading through it, they claim that somehow they measure, some gazillion number of data points about consumers' interests, to try to figure out what the brand is worth.
This Mac Voices Live panel is back in the next edition of Mac Voices to talk more about Apple's retaking the Top Brand Recognition Award and what that really means and how it's measured and how it's decided. And there are some questions that are asked that really have no good answers. That's next time on Mac Voices, and I hope you'll join us. Until then, and as always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.